Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Kachi, a certified electrician who has ventured into poultry farming. Would like to just send a message before we get into our video today. From Mulamulire farm, would like to say to everyone out there watching this video, mask up, stay safe, COVID is real. Now, let's get into the video. So today we have an interesting subject that we are talking about. We are talking about poultry equipment and the appropriate time to use certain poultry equipment. Everyone who gets into poultry farming with the goal to succeed, to achieve success. Broiler farming is about meat production. So every farmer wants their chickens to grow up to the maximum they can grow. But there are certain times when the equipment in the poultry house just doesn't allow the chickens to grow. So in this video, we are going to look at certain poultry equipment which you are supposed to have in your poultry house. Some we are going to show you right now, but that which we do not have, we shall just mention and then you can look it up. So let us start with the sprayer. So this is a sprayer. This is a smaller one. There are bigger sprayers than this. If you have a bigger chicken house, you need something very big. But this is very important in that before you bring in the birds, you have to disinfect the house. Some people use gas disinfectant, but most people use liquid disinfectant. You need to put the liquid disinfectant in the sprayer and then spray the chicken house before the chicks can come in. This is a very important tool that you need to have as a broiler farmer. The next piece of equipment we are going to talk about is the feeding tray. So this is a feeding tray. This is the feeder that you use when you get your birds. They're all chicks, you bring them in, they're supposed to eat from a feeding tray. The reason for the chicks feeding from a feeding tray is so that they may have easy access to feed. So you need to have feeding trays. This is only here for illustration purposes, but you need to have several feeding trays depending on the number of chicks that you want to keep. And then there's this other feeder which is for the chicks when they're still very small, and yet this one has some restrictions. I've seen where people use a feeder like this when the chicks just arrive. I wouldn't advise that. Because then the chicks would find it difficulty for them to access feed from here. The best thing to use when the chicks just arrive is a feeding tray. So you need to have feeding trays, but you also need to have these other type of feeders. Some have these little walls. The birds will be eating from these walls as many birds as they can from here. So you need to have a number of these feeders. Now, what you can do is on the first day when the chicks arrive, you want to have a number of feeding trays which the chicks will easily access the feed from. You can introduce these maybe after 3 or 4 days, so that the chicks get used eating from a different kind of feeder, such that when you remove the feeding trays, which will be probably day 8 or day 9, the chicks would have already gotten used to eating from a different kind of feeder. And which brings us to the next equipment which you need to have in your chicken house or your poultry. And the other thing to note about this feeder is that it prevents the chicks from wasting feed. You don't want your feed being wasted. For the feeding tray, the chicks will easily access the feed, and at the same time, they will also easily waste the feed. So you want to remove it as soon as the chicks have grown, maybe 8-9 days. You want to remove that. Which brings us to the next feeder on the table. So you have this feeder, which you can put on the very day when the chicks arrive. But what you want to do is, again, you need to have a lot of feeding trays, and you just put this somewhere where the chicks can access it. They can eat from here, but it is not the primary source of feeding for the chicks. You put it in the poultry house so that the chicks can get used to eating from something like this. After 8 days you have removed those, they shouldn't struggle to eat from here. They would have already gotten used to eating from this feeder, because you would have already trained them to eat from this particular feeder. So you can have 1 or 2 depending on your brooding area. A brooder as small as the one I'm in right now would only take 3 feeding trays and 1 of these. So depending on the size of your brooder, you can see how many you put in your chicken house. Which brings us to the next feeder on the list. Now, this is a feeder that you introduce maybe at 10-11 days, and the chicks will probably eat from here up to market day. You just keep on increasing the height of the feeder. So they would have already gotten used to eating from different kinds of feeders by the time you are introducing this one in the chicken house. They would have gotten used, and so you need to have 1 of these feeders. So they are even bigger sizes than this one, which I'm holding in my hands. I can say this one is a medium size. There are smaller ones of the same kind, and then there are bigger ones of the same kind. So you need to have several of them. And then they come in different forms. This is a metallic one. There are plastic ones. Plastic ones even have rails to prevent the birds from wasting feed. So you can also invest in those, but these have served me really well. The chickens are able to access feed very well, and I think it is one of the feeders that I prefer using compared to the plastic ones with rails. The plastic ones with rails are really good when it comes to preventing the chicks from wasting feed, but so are these when properly used. Which brings me to the drinkers. Okay, I have 2 small drinkers here. Both are 4 liters, but they are different in the way they are made. Okay, for this one, you open it easily and you only compress it to close it. When there is water, you compress it, and then it is closed. And then you can carry it and then just put it in the chicken house. And then there's this other one. It is also 4 liters. It is small, but for it, you have to open it. It has some I don't know what to call these, but whatever they are, you screw it when closing it. So, recommended usage for these two drinkers. On the day when the chicks just arrive, I recommend you use this type of a drinker. It's a small normal drinker. Reason being, when you look at this one, the space here is very small. It has a very small space. But when you look at the other one, the space there is big. So what happens is that when you use this type on the first day, most chicks will get wet as they are trying to drink water. Some of them will get into the drinker itself. It is small, and yet chicks still manage to get into the drinker and they get wet. And on the first day, it's only right that you put the feeder on the floor. So it's important that you have both these types of drinkers so that the chicks will start from here, and then maybe after 6 or 7 days, you can introduce this one. The reason why I'm saying you can introduce this one, after 6 or 7 days, the chicks would have grown, and you would want to lift this drinker a little bit higher, and you would have to find something to put on the floor so that this can be lifted up a bit. But then, in this case, all you need is just a rope. You can just tie it on the roof and then string the small drinker there and put it to the required height which you want to put. So I advise that from day 1 up to day 6 or 7, you use this type of drinkers. At the point when you want to lift the drinkers a bit, you bring in this drinker, which you can lift a bit, and then the chicks will drink, because it's very important for you to lift these things as the chicks are growing so that they can grow as fast as possible. And now, I know some are watching from outside Zambia, and you might be wondering, what is that thing? This is a brazier, and it's specifically designed for brooding chickens. And some places they call them charcoal stoves. This is a brazier which is specifically made for brooding chickens. They come in different sizes. So some people use electric heating, which would take some infrared lights, and they'll provide the heating needed for the chickens. But most of us here, we use charcoal for brooding, so you need a brazier. So this would be suitable when you are just starting out and the brooder is still small. The area which needs to be warmed is just within the brooder. But as the chicks grow, you have to expand the brooder. You might need to bring in a bigger brazier. So it's good that you have several sizes of the brazier. Now, let us talk about some poultry equipment which we do not have right now with us, but are really required in the chicken house. You need to have a scale. It can be digital, it can be analog. As long as you are able to read a scale, then you need to have a scale, because at the end of 7 days, a chick is supposed to reach a certain target weight, and the only way you are going to know that is if you measure the weight of the chicks. And even at the point of sale, there are some customers who will demand that they know the weight of the birds. So you need to have a scale as one of the required poultry equipment. And then the other thing which you are going to need is a thermometer, so that you can be monitoring the temperature in the chicken house. As we all know that temperature is very important, and humidity, you need to have those in there, a must. You need to have them in the chicken house. And then for other things like litter management, you need to have a shovel, You need to have a fork which you can use, a garden fork which you can use for the litter when the litter gets dirty, and then you still need to clean the poultry house. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to like this button and like this video and leave a comment. Thank you.